Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi. Today we're going to take a look at Mask-a-tron, Steve Austin, the $6 million man's arch enemy. As you can see here, we have Steve Austin on the left and Mask-a-tron on the right. They're both 13 inches tall, and Mask-a-tron is absolutely jam-packed with features. So let's take a look at some of the ones that you can see when he's got his clothes on, and then we'll take his clothes off and we'll see all of the features that are hidden underneath his clothing. Straight out of the box, Mask-a-tron comes with quite a few sort of separate elements. As you can see him here, he looks like a normal bloke, but just by pulling the front of his face off, you can see that he's actually a robot. So first up, Mask-a-tron comes with 3 different heads. He has this sort of normal human face here. He has a Steve Austin $6 million man face here, and he also has an Oscar Goldman face here. Now this is quite a nice little feature because they each clip quite snugly onto his face there, and all of the hair matches pretty well, so it looks like quite a good join, as you can see there, Oscar Goldman's face. And let's put on the Steve Austin face there. Again, it's a pretty good match, and you know, it's hard to tell that it's actually just a clip-on face. So that's the first sort of excellent feature that he has. He also comes with some extra arm pieces, as you can see here. This first one is a gripping claw, and I love the feature on this. It's just got a tiny spring on it, and you can easily pull this back and the claw opens and springs shut. Really nice designed little additional item there, and I'll show you in a minute how these clip in place on his body. Next up we have a sucker arm. This is a rubberized bit of plastic with a sucker on the end. Unfortunately, over the time this rubber tends to perish a bit. This one's not too bad, but the actual rubber sucky bit at the end has split, so the feature doesn't actually work anymore, but the arm still looks pretty good. So you know, it's a shame, but you know, that's just the perils of time and this sort of rubber. Figure itself is pretty much the same sort of construction, or it looks like the same sort of construction as Steve Austin when you get him like this with his clothes on. Same sort of good amount of joints and features, so it's quite nice and poseable. You can stand him and sit him. An interesting thing to note is the Mask-a-tron shoes, which are essentially Steve Austin's trainers, just in black without the painted details on, but it's exactly the same mould, just in black. So a nice bit of cost saving there from the manufacturers. And as you can see, the clothing is pretty sort of basic. This is in fact reproduction clothing, as I couldn't find a Mask-a-tron with his clothing sort of for a decent price. So this is the stuff made by rodhullsghost on eBay, and this has been kindly donated to him to sort of show it off. And I have to say, it's a pretty nice costume. The detailing on this is really nicely made. You'd be hard pushed to notice that this wasn't an original costume. It's got all the right sort of buttons and bits on the back. The fabric for the top is a sort of polyester type material, and the trousers are made of more of a cotton type material, but it just looks at the business and works pretty nice. It also comes with socks. If I just roll up his trousers here, you can see that he's got black socks on like the original Mask-a-tron had. Right, let's just go ahead and look at some of the other features, and to do this I'm going to remove some of his clothes so that we can see what the body looks like. As soon as you get Mask-a-tron's top off, you can see what an amazing job Kenner did on this figure. There is just so much going on. First up, you can see that his body looks much more like a robot than a human. It's just the forearms and the 4 legs that are sort of flesh coloured. Everything else is this nice sort of metallic finish. And you can see all these little catches all over him. Now these are to release and fire out different parts of his body. You can sort of reenact a fight between Steve Austin and Mask-a-tron, and if Steve hits these various pressure points, if I press this one, you can see his head fires off, and it's just quite a nice little gimmick there. The heads are pretty easy to sort of reattach. There is a locking mechanism on each side. If I push this locking mechanism over, this button no longer works and the head doesn't fire off, because it can get a little bit annoying if you're trying to sort of play with him and the heads and bits keep firing off. So it's nice that you can lock this in place. Likewise, it does the same on his arms. If I unlock this arm, you can see it fires out, and that's where these extra limbs come in play. You can now swap these out and click them in place, and you can now fight Steve Austin with a robotic claw arm, where if I ping out the arm on the other side, we can swap this out for the one with this sucker on it. So Mask-a-tron becomes much more of a sort of an evil sort of nemesis to Steve Austin with these added features in place. On the back of the figure there's also a sort of hidden secret sort of cavity where you're supposed to be able to store the alternate faces that came with the figure. You can actually only get one face in at a time, but it's better than nothing, so you can just store one face in there like so. This also gives you access to the sort of bionic circuitry bits that are on the front. I say bionic, it's more just circuitry because this guy is just fully robot, and this means that you can actually pop these panels out. It's pretty hard to do, so you can actually just use the pegs on the arms here and just pop out the pieces. Not the easiest of things to do, which is quite good actually, because otherwise you'd lose them. Let's just pop out one of them there. So you can see I've popped out part of his sort of lower chest. Yeah, I'm guessing it's pretty good that these are pretty hard to remove, otherwise all of these bits would be lost over time. And as you can see there, the arms and bits are fairly sort of easily sprung out of place, so it can be a little annoying to play with this figure, but it's still pretty good. Let's remove his trousers and we'll see the rest of the bionics on his legs. So here we have Mask-a-tron with the rest of his clothing removed, and as you can see the legs are set up in the same way as the arms, so there's some buttons and catches on the side, and if I press the button his leg will fire off. So if for play value you can now actually add the arm parts instead of his lower leg. So you can see here we now have him with the sort of clippy claw added to it, and I guess if you're a kid this is an excellent thing to be able to do. It really does add a load of play value, and obviously you could buy extra Steve Austin $6 Million Man limbs and accessories, and all of these will be interchangeable with this figure. Like all the other $6 Million Man dolls, you can pull the arms off. If I just pull this top section off here, sometimes they're a bit tight to pull off, but they do remove. This one's not wanting to budge today, but let's give it a bit more of a tweak. There we go. So the arm comes off, and you can actually swap these out with the other arms. You do have to be a little bit careful with some of these older toys. The plastic does get a little bit brittle, so you can see here I've forced this one a bit, but sometimes if you do that it will just end up snapping. So do be a little bit careful when sort of playing with these old toys, as they do, you know, age does affect the plastic, and it's not as strong as it used to be. Overall, I think this is probably one of the best $6 Million Man figures. It just has so much going for it. There's so many sort of different ways of playing with it, and the fact that all the limbs sort of pop out and can be swapped around really does make for a sort of extra play value. And the fact that you can actually play with him as Steve Austin or Oscar Goldman, if you so desire, really adds to it. I was thinking this probably would be quite a hard figure to find complete, but it actually turned out pretty easy for me. I was lucky enough to have a pair of his shoes already in my collection. They'd turned up in a job lot a while back, and the figure, although it comes with a lot of sort of extra parts that you have to keep an eye out for, I managed to pick up the complete figure with all parts for £12 at a recent toy fair. And as I mentioned before, this is a reproduction costume bought from Rodhullsghost on eBay. I'll put a link in the details of this video, and the costume is really good. So it's actually pretty easy to get everything for this figure. The hardest bit probably is going to be the shoes, but they do turn up every now and again. So anyway, I think this is a lovely figure. I really wish I'd had this as a kid. I've actually only bought this in recent years, but as a kid I would have absolutely loved this figure. So if you're a $6 Million Man fan, well worth getting and adding to your collection. Really great. Kenner did a wonderful job. Thanks for watching.